You talked about considering New Jersey to be in state for Penn State. How much of a target is New Jersey recruiting-wise?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think some people ran with that to try to make it more than what it was. And I understand everybody's trying to sell newspapers and get hits on websites, but the point was, and I think the people that were there for the whole press conference understood, the point was we're going to treat Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey and Northern Virginia really as in-state areas in terms of the amount of resources, the amount of time that we're going to give it. We basically want to take 6 hours from campus and treat that as an in-state area. And if you look when Penn State was really rolling, they were really successful recruiting those areas. So that's more of an approach than anything. People want to take it as disrespect. It's not disrespect. I have tremendous respect for Pitt. I have tremendous respect for Rutgers and Maryland and all those schools. Coach Flood, unbelievable respect for those guys. Our approach is that we have to. We have to do a great job in this part of the country, and we're going to go nationally as well. But if we can keep the majority of the best players in this region home, we're going to have a chance to be successful. And I've watched now for the last 10 years schools from other conferences coming and plucking 1 or 2 players from this region and going other places. And our point is if you can get everything you want and do it close to home, why wouldn't you? It makes sense for everybody. I mean, you look at the expense that goes along with, you got to fly somewhere. You talk about flight, you talk about hotel, you talk about car rental, you talk about food, you talk about all those things, and then you multiply that over 5 years, that's an expense. And if you can get a great education and have a big-time football experience and do it close to home, why wouldn't you? You 3 guys, you may be loyal to other areas and other institutions. If you guys had sons that were Division I athletes and football players, I'm going to come into your living room and I'm going to sell you on something, and it's going to be hard for you to argue with what we're selling. I believe that. I believe that strongly.
You're not taking a chance with New Jersey, or you have 3 designated recruiters for the state?
I'd have to double check that, but I think that's probably accurate.
Is that more than average? I mean, you talk about Maryland, you talk about Delaware, you talk about Virginia. Among those schools that you consider in state, is New Jersey even more of a focus?
Well, I think it really comes down to the size. I mean, it's hard to compare it to Delaware. I mean, you talk about the size of the state, you're talking about the number of high schools, and then you're talking about the number of Division I prospects. So that's how we kind of look at it. And then, where you're going to get your most bang for your buck. So we think New Jersey, we got an opportunity to develop relationships better than a lot of other states, and that's what it's all about. You're going to do a better job within 6 hours of your campus. So the number, I actually think we have 4 coaches in New Jersey, but I'd have to double check. I'd have to double check all that. Although we have coaches by area, it's hard for me to kind of answer that question just from memory, because we really don't recruit that way. If you're a kid that's being recruited by Penn State, you're really going to have a hard time knowing who's the recruiter, because we recruit by area, we recruit by position coach, we recruit by offensive and defensive recruiting coordinators, we recruit by offensive and defensive coordinators in general, and then the head coach. So a kid should not really know who his recruiter is. We recruit as a staff. That's why I don't even like. You look at Rivals and 247 tries to associate a certain recruit with who recruited them. If you're being recruited by Penn State, you should have no idea who's really recruiting you. That's just kind of our approach and how we do it. I want them to be comfortable with the entire staff, And then if there comes a point where we lose an assistant coach to become a head coach, it's not devastating in that recruiting process because he only feels really close with that one guy.
What did you see in John Donovan that made you take him with you in 2011 and again this year?
Well, John, first of all, John's a smart guy, really smart guy. He's a Johns Hopkins grad. He came up like me under Ralph, but even longer. You know, he was with Ralph for 13 years. You know, 3 at Georgia Tech, got his master's degree from Georgia Tech, and then 10 years at Maryland. So he's a guy that I worked with for a long time. I knew who he was. I knew how he was going to react when times got tough, and all those things are important. You know, it's easy to be around somebody when things are going easy. How are they going to act when times get tough? And I just, you know, I always respected his loyalty. I always respected his intelligence. And then obviously coming to Penn State, it made even more sense. It made even more sense. He's very comfortable. It's funny, you know, I'll be out with him recruiting, and we'll be recruiting in Tennessee, and he's one guy, and then all of a sudden, you know, we're recruiting New Jersey, and I see a different guy. You know, last year I went to the National Football Foundation in New York that they have every year, and John picked me up from the airport and dropped me off, and he's ripping through the traffic and screaming and yelling and honking. I'm like, hey, where's this guy been? You know, but just he was a great fit. He's done a really good job. I think the other thing is he was. We were together at the University of Maryland, and then I left and came back as the coordinator and installed a new offense. And John saw that, so he's kind of been there, you know, with me as an assistant, me as a coordinator, and now me as a head coach. So he's got a really good perspective. We have a really good relationship. He's not an ego guy. I can make recommendations. We can have discussions, but he's also strong enough that if he feels strongly about something, he's going to let me know. You know, he's going to let me know. So we got a really good relationship. Same with Bob Shoup. You know, another really smart guy. Bob's got an economics degree from Yale. What do you do with an economics degree from Yale? You coach football, right? That makes sense. Yeah. John's got a degree from Hopkins. Those two are really considered football hotbeds. East Stroudsburg, football hotbed. You know, so those things have been really good, and they've been really valuable. And John's part of a core group of guys, you know, that I've been with for about 15 years. You know, our strength coach Dwight Galt, you know, John. There's a core group of guys, so that's been really good.